In 323 BC, a young ruler, barely 32 years old, died in Babylon. But what he left behind was no ordinary kingdom. The lands under his rule stretched from Greece to Egypt, from Anatolia to the depths of India. Even more astonishing is that he accomplished this in just 13 years. So how did a small Macedonian ting become one of history's greatest conquerors? What was the secret to his success? His military genius? His insatiable ambition? Or did he see himself as chosen by fate? In this documentary, we will follow Alexander the Great's extraordinary journey from his childhood to the known limits of the world. In 356 BC, a child was born in Pella, the capital of the Kingdom of Macedonia. This child was Alexander, who would change the course of history. His father, Philip II, was a skilled ruler who transformed Macedonia into one of the most powerful military states of its time. His mother, Olympias, was a princess of Epirus and believed her son was no ordinary man. Ancient sources recount that Olympias instilled in Alexander from childhood the idea that he had a great destiny. While it is not known with certainty how much of these stories are true, it is clear that Alexander, even at a young age, saw himself as someone born to accomplish great things. Alexander grew up in a warrior society. Being a prince in Macedonia meant more than just learning to rule. It also meant learning to fight, command, and survive. From a young age, he learned to ride horses, wield a sword, and master military discipline. But it wasn't just his fighting ability that set him apart from his contemporaries. Alexander's mind was as powerful as his sword. One of the most important turning points in Alexander's life was becoming a student of Aristotle. Philip II placed great importance on his son's education. Therefore, he appointed Aristotle, one of the greatest philosophers of the time, as the young prince's tutor. Aristotle taught him more than just philosophy. He provided education in many fields, including history, geography, politics, medicine, literature, and science. Homer's Iliad, in particular, had a profound influence on Alexander. He often identified himself with Achilles, the hero of the epic. Some ancient sources state that Alexander carried a special copy of the Iliad with him on his military campaigns. One of the most famous stories about Alexander's youth concerns a horse named Bucephalus. According to the account, when a wild horse that no one could control was brought to the palace, young Alexander noticed that the animal was afraid of its own shadow. He calmed the horse by turning it towards the sun and mounted it. While the details of this event are debated among historians, the story offers an important insight into Alexander's character. He was a leader who could see opportunities in what people perceived as problems. Meanwhile, Macedonia was rising to power. Philip II had reorganized his army, creating the famous Macedonian phalanx, equipped with long spears. He was steadily increasing his power by exploiting the rivalries between the Greek city-states. Alexander, meanwhile, was learning the art of warfare alongside his father and closely observing the administration of the state. He had already begun participating in military operations at a young age. The Battle of Chaeronea, which took place in 338 BC, gave Alexander the Great the opportunity to demonstrate his abilities on a large scale for the first time. The Greek city-states were trying to halt the rise of Philip. During the battle, the young Alexander led a crucial charge with his cavalry. This victory not only solidified Macedonia's dominance in the Greek world, but also heralded the emergence of the future conqueror. However, history sometimes takes an unexpected turn. In 336 BC, Philip II was assassinated. Even today, it is not known for certain who was behind the assassination. Some theories point to palace intrigues, while others suggest it stemmed from personal reasons. The only thing certain is that the Macedonian throne now passed to the 20-year-old Alexander. Many believed the young king would not remain in power for long. Rivals began to emerge. Greek city-states harbored hopes of independence, and neighboring peoples were preparing for revolts. But Alexander acted much faster than expected. He established his authority decisively and forcefully. Within a few years, he suppressed all opposition and became the undisputed leader of Macedonia. The Theban revolt, in particular, was a turning point. Alexander besieged the city and quickly captured it. Much of the city was destroyed. This harsh intervention sent a clear message to other Greek cities. Now, Macedonia was ruled not by Philip, but by a ruler at least as determined. After resolving internal problems, Alexander turned his attention eastward. The great goal his father had planned for years now rested on his shoulders: the Persian Empire. At that time, the Persians were one of the largest and wealthiest states in the world. Their armies were numerically superior. Their resources were far greater. But in Alexander's eyes, this was nothing more than an obstacle to overcome. In 334 BC, he crossed into Asia with approximately 40,000 soldiers. This moment was not merely a military campaign. It was also the beginning of one of the most important expeditions in world history. Alexander was advancing into the unknown. A vast empire lay before him, but he had no intention of turning back. When Alexander landed on the Anatolian coast, his first target was the army of the Persian satraps. The two armies met on the banks of the Granicus River. The Persian commanders had established a defensive line on the opposite bank of the river. Many generals thought the attack would be suicidal. Alexander did not hesitate. He personally entered the river at the forefront. Arrows rained down, spears clashed. At one point, a Persian warrior shattered Alexander's helmet. Just as he was about to be killed, his close friend Cleitos killed the attacker. The victory at Granicus shook the Persian defenses. Many cities in Anatolia opened their gates. Alexander presented himself as the leader who had liberated the Greek cities from Persian rule. This propaganda worked. His army advanced along the coast. Sardis surrendered. He encountered resistance at Miletus and Halicarnassus. The siege of Halicarnassus, in particular, was fierce. The city walls were the scene of a struggle filled with fires and street fighting. But Alexander did not retreat. As he advanced into central Anatolia, he reached Gordian. There lay a legendary knot. According to prophecy, whoever untied this knot would become the ruler of Asia. Alexander looked at the knot. He struggled with it, trying to untie it. Then he drew his sword and cut the knot. Whether this actually happened is unknown, but the story perfectly illustrates his character. If the problem can't be solved, change the rules. Persian King Darius III was now aware of the danger. He assembled a massive army and marched north to stop Alexander. The two armies met at Issus in 333 BC. In the battle, which took place on a narrow coastal plain, the Persians' numerical superiority could not be fully utilized. Alexander led a cavalry charge on the right flank, attacking directly at the center where Darius was positioned. The Persian lines were shaken. Darius panicked and fled the battlefield. The king's escape shattered the morale of the army. The victory at Issus was not just a battle win, it shattered the image of the invincibility of the Persian Empire. After the war, Darius's mother, wife, and children fell into Alexander's hands. The young king treated them with far more respect than expected. This attitude sent an important message, both politically and personally. He was not just a conqueror, but a leader acting like a sovereign. After Issus, instead of marching directly on the Persian capital, Alexander decided to secure the southern coast. The Phoenician ports were vital to the Persian navy. The greatest obstacle was the city of Tyre. Tyre was a powerful fortress built on an island in the middle of the sea. The city refused to surrender. Alexander had a causeway built into the sea to reach the island from the mainland. During months of siege, massive siege towers, catapults, and naval battles were used. Storms destroyed the causeway. Defenders set the towers on fire, but the Macedonians did not give up. After 7 months, the walls were breached. The city fell. The Siege of Tyre went down in history as one of the most impressive siege operations of the ancient world. The next major obstacle in the south was Gaza. The city, perched on a high hill at the edge of the desert, stubbornly resisted. After a long siege, Gaza was captured, thus opening the way to Egypt. When Alexander entered Egypt, the people welcomed him as a liberator against the Persians. Resistance was almost non-existent. The fertile lands of the Nile, the temples, and the ancient traditions impressed the young king. He decided to found a new city on the Mediterranean coast, Alexandria. This city would later become one of the most important centers of the Hellenistic world. Alexander also traveled to the Siwa oasis deep in the desert. He met with the oracles at the Temple of Amun. Exactly what was said is unknown, but it seems that upon his return, Alexander began to see himself as connected to a divine destiny. This visit was a significant turning point in his psychology. When he left Egypt, his target was now the heart of the Persian Empire. Darius assembled his last great army. The battlefield was the plain of Gaugamela in Mesopotamia. In 331 BC, the two armies faced each other. The Persians had leveled the battlefield, making it suitable for chariots. They were far more numerous. Alexander, on the other hand, relied on a smaller but disciplined army. When the battle began, Persian chariots attacked the Macedonian lines. However, the trained soldiers broke through their ranks, rendering the chariots ineffective. Then Alexander performed one of history's most famous cavalry maneuvers. Noticing the gap in the Persian line, he advanced directly towards the center. Darius retreated once more. With the victory at Gaugamela, the Persian Empire effectively collapsed. When Alexander entered Babylon, the city gates opened to him. The wealth was dazzling. Then Susa surrendered. The next target was Persepolis, the magnificent capital of the Persian kings. Upon reaching Persepolis, Alexander was confronted by mountains of gold, silver, and treasure. But here, one of history's most controversial events unfolded. The palace complex was set ablaze. Whether this was a deliberate act of revenge or a result of drunkenness remains a debate, but the outcome was the same. The symbolic heart of the Persian dynasty was consumed by flames. Darius fled east. Alexander pursued him. However, the Persian king was killed by his own men. When Alexander found the body, he ordered a royal funeral. He now considered himself the legitimate heir to the Persian throne. For many commanders, the war was over at this point. The Persian Empire had collapsed. But Alexander did not stop. he turned his attention to the vast lands of Central Asia. In Bactria and Sogdiana, the war took a completely different turn. Here, instead of regular armies, there were swift cavalry, mountain fortresses, and guerrilla attacks. Desert roads, freezing mountain passes, and rebellions wore down the Macedonians. Alexander employed harsh methods, but also sought alliances with local elites. During this period, he married Roxana, a noblewoman from Bactria. The marriage was both a personal and a political step. After years of struggle, Central Asia was largely brought under control, but Alexander's eyes were still on the east, India, the land of riches and mysteries of the ancient world. In 327 BC, Alexander crossed the Hindu Kush mountains with his army and entered the Indian subcontinent. Tropical forests, monsoon rains, and massive rivers were completely unfamiliar to the Macedonian soldiers. The greatest battle took place at the Hydaspes River. They faced King Porus, the ruler of Punjab. Porus's army included war elephants. The Macedonians had never encountered such a force before. Alexander secretly crossed the river under the cover of darkness. Advancing through storms, rain, and mud, the soldiers attacked at dawn. The elephants initially created a terrifying effect. The horses were startled and the ranks broke. However, the disciplined troops managed to isolate the elephants. After a long and bloody struggle, Porus was defeated. After the battle, Alexander summoned Porus to his presence. According to legend, he asked him, "How do you wish me to treat you?" Porus replied, "As one king should treat another." Impressed by this courageous answer, Alexander reinstated him as ruler. But despite the victory at Hydaspes, the Macedonian army's patience was wearing thin. They had been far from home for years. Monsoon rains, heat, unfamiliar lands, and constant warfare had worn the soldiers down. Alexander wanted to advance further east. However, the army mutinied at the Hyphasis River. Even the commanders favored the idea of turning back. The young king resisted for days. Finally, reluctantly, he gave the order to retreat. This was one of the rare retreats in his life. The return journey was even harder than the victories. While part of the army advanced along the rivers, Alexander crossed the Gedrosian desert with the rest. The scorching heat, thirst, and hunger caused the death of thousands of soldiers. The desert was more merciless than the battlefields. Years later, when he returned to Babylon, his empire had grown to enormous proportions, a dominion stretching from Greece to the borders of India. But this success brought problems. Keeping different peoples under a single rule was difficult. Alexander tried to adopt Persian traditions, incorporate local elites into the administration, and transform his army into a mixed structure. Some Macedonians were uneasy about these changes. Nevertheless, Alexander was planning new campaigns, the conquest of Arabia, perhaps even beyond. But fate had another decision. In 323 BC, he fell ill in Babylon. His fever rose for days. His commanders waited anxiously. He had difficulty speaking, but he longed to see his soldiers. Legend says that in his final days, he passed silently before his army. The soldiers saluted him with tears in their eyes. And finally, Alexander the Great died. He was only 32 years old. The exact cause of death is unknown. Was it illness, malaria, another infection, or poisoning? Historians still debate. The only certainty is that one of the world's greatest conquerors, with his incredibly short life, has passed from history with his achievements. But the real drama was just beginning. Alexander had left no clear heir. A power struggle began among his generals. These commanders, the Diadochi, fought for years to divide the empire. Eventually, the union disintegrated. The Ptolemaic dynasty emerged in Egypt, the Seleucids in Asia, and various other kingdoms in other regions. Yet Alexander's legacy was not lost. On the contrary, a new era began, the Hellenistic era. The Greek language became a common means of communication from east to west. Cities like Alexandria became centers of science, philosophy, and commerce. Greek, Egyptian, Persian, and Eastern cultures mingled. Mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and art formed a new synthesis. This influence extended to the Roman world, and from there to modern civilization. Alexander's empire was short-lived. It disintegrated after his death. However, its cultural impact lasted for centuries because he not only conquered lands, he built bridges between people, languages, ideas, and traditions. So why is he still considered one of history's greatest commanders? Because he almost never lost a major pitched battle. He repeatedly triumphed against numerically superior armies. He moved swiftly, took risks, and fought on the front lines. His soldiers saw him not just as a king, but as a leader by their side in battle. He was also extraordinary in strategic thinking. The river assault at Granicus, the advantage of tight space at Issos, the cavalry maneuver targeting the central gap at Gaugamela, the island siege by filling in the sea at Tyre. Each is among the classic examples of military history. But perhaps what made him unique was his imagination. He considered possible goals that most rulers deemed unattainable. He was born a prince of a kingdom in northern Europe. In his short life, he destroyed the Persian Empire, founded cities in Egypt, reached Central Asia, and advanced as far as India. His story is as full of contradictions as it is of triumph. He was as brave as he was ruthless. He destroyed cities while trying to unite cultures. He was generous to his friends, but his own relatives fell victim to his anger. Although he is described as a superhuman legend, in the end, he too was helpless in the face of death.
And perhaps that is why he still fascinates us, because Alexander the Great is one of the most striking examples of human ambition that knows no bounds. He changed the map of the world, not in a lifetime, but in just 32 years. The empire he built crumbled, but the mark he left was not erased. The routes he opened between East and West carried trade, culture, language, and thought for centuries. Today, different states, different peoples, and different languages exist in the lands he traversed, but the same name still echoes: Alexander the Great. Because some people conquer not only their own era, but also the collective memory of humanity. Alexander was one such person.